Hi, I'm Annabelle.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to Escaping Purgatory, the podcast where we rewatch Supernatural, then talk it through, in the hopes that we finally escape this show.
Join us each week and leave comments on upcoming episodes, and together we can escape Supernatural Purgatory. So we expect all the comments this week. All of them. Because we are talking about what is and what should never be. I know Amy has thoughts.
I have
so many thoughts. So I'm going to let her lead this episode pretty much and just sort of weigh in as I see, because I'm interested in your thoughts. Me personally, I was just like, I also have thoughts, but only at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it's centered around John Winchester, because we all know I do not stand John Winchester.
Mm-hmm.
I am a little surprised that this got a 9.4. Who were the sadists out there that thought it should be that high?
No, I love this episode. I hate it. I love it. I hate it.
Right. You're a sadist. Or sorry. Masochist.
Yeah.
Masochist? Yeah, no, you're a masochist.
Oh no. Yeah. So this episode was written by Ryle Tucker and directed by the one, the only Eric Kripke. And before I say anything else, if you watch this on the DVD version, Kripke does a commentary of this episode, which is extremely worth listening to. And I have some comments from that here, because some of the things he said are just wild. Just honestly, I will say one thing. If you do listen to it, the absolute standing of Jensen Ackles that Kripke does through that whole of that commentary is hilarious.
I mean, this was a Dean episode. Like, I feel like this was the turning point in the season, or in the series, right? It's got to be.
I feel like we've said that many times. Like, this is when Dean became the main character. No, this is when Dean became the main character. He's always been the main character.
He's always been the main character.
He's Kripke's favourite.
Season 1, maybe not so much.
No, that's true. I mean, yeah. We'll see. I think there is a defining point at which he does get main character syndrome. But, like, I don't know if this was... I don't know if this is it. Like, this is a very interesting episode because it is so Dean focused. Like, well, it is. Mm-hmm. This whole episode is about Dean. I think Sam is briefly in it at the beginning. At the end, that's it. So, what Kripke had to say about this from the beginning was that he knew he was going to direct an episode this season, and he always knew that it was going to be episode 20. But at that point, when they decide that, they decide who's going to be directing what episode in the order, but they don't necessarily know what the episode's going to be about. Because he's head writer, he kind of had say over what the story was going to be for this episode. And apparently he had lots of scripts come to him and he was like, no, until eventually they got to this one. Mm-hmm. He directly cites Buffy as a inspiration for this episode.
And one of the episodes of Buffy that I really remember was the one where she woke up in the mental institution and you don't know quite what was reality and what was her old life and what was her new life.
Which is really interesting. So I guess eventually he was happy with what Ryle Tucker wrote and they went with that. But I feel like he had a very heavy influence on this, although she did write this episode. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, it's kind of interesting because in terms of like the overall story, and like we have 2 episodes left this season.
Yeah. And
this doesn't necessarily add that much to the story right now.
No.
Like it does for the next season for sure. Mm-hmm. So I mean it's planting the seeds for other things that come up.
Yeah.
It felt like an out of place plot episode.
Yeah, it is actually like, why would you choose now to explore this?
Right.
And I feel like I might ask that question again when we do the last 2 episodes, because I feel like it maybe is related, but it's in a weird way.
Yeah.
With that cryptic message, let's go into the episode. Okay. There was a recap on this. I'm not going to go through it because it's basically all about John, Mary, Jessica, which makes sense with the episode. And then at the end of that, Dean has that little speech that he did about being sick of the job.
Sick of the job anyway. I mean, we don't get paid, we don't get thanked. The only thing we get's bad luck.
So we see him driving, and the license plate has changed. I didn't remember that the license plate changed this early on into the show from the KAZ to the CNK license plate.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense after what they'd just gone through with the previous episode. And they did say they have to go into deep cover, or whatever it was.
Deep cover. Yeah. And it just kind of goes right into it. So he gets a phone call from Sam while Dean's driving. And, they talk about being on the run. Sam's doing some research on a gin. Like, he's sat in the motel with all his books out. And I think he's saying to Dean that the police are outside. And they have that conversation about that being a problem. But they eventually move on. Of course, Dean calls the gin a freaking genie, which is great. And he makes an I Dream of Jeannie reference here.
But not exactly like barber-eating harem pants. I mean, jinn have been feeding off people for centuries. They're all over the Quran.
My God. Barbara Eden was hot, wasn't she? Way hotter than that bewitched chick.
I mean, they look almost identical.
I thought they were the same person.
Well, I Dream of Jeannie was a direct rip-off from Bewitched, right? I think that's the way around it was. If I got that wrong, someone's going to be super mad in the comments. But,
they both do the nose twitch thing, right?
No, Jeannie does like a hand thing and she nods her head.
Oh, yeah.
And Bewitched is the nose twitch thing. I love both those shows. I don't care there are two of them. So essentially, like, Sam says that the gin likes hanging out in ruins, and Dean's like, I know a place, and sort of drives to it. So yeah, quite a quick setup. There's a gin, which means nothing to us at this point. Like, if we were watching this for the first time, we don't know what gins do. But
no, I mean, they've just likened it to a genie, so you can kind of guess that it's gonna grant a wish, because that's what genies are known to do.
Mm-hmm. I kind of want to address this here, because I could put this at the end of the episode, but I feel like we need to just decide this here and now. Do you think in this episode, okay, how do jinns work?
God. Yeah, I know, I kept going back and forth on this too.
Is it a wish that then puts you into an alternate reality where that wish is granted? Like genies do, where normally they grant your wish, but it has some kind of downside.
Right.
Or is this a fantasy dream world that they put you into?
I'm going to say fantasy dream world.
Okay.
Just because of how the episode ends. I don't see that as something that's possible in, like, alternate reality world.
Okay.
So here's the thing that I kept, like... okay, I'll say this now, but you can, like, take it out if you want. The thing I kept, like, going back and forth on was this djinn doesn't know what they're doing, because Dean is still himself.
Yeah.
So he knows about monsters. He knows about everything. And, like, because of that, he can't let himself go.
Yeah.
So is it that Dean has like strong will and, like, can get through the wish, or is he just not able to be happy?
Yeah, I know. I mean, this is going to come up through the whole episode, I feel, but yeah. I think the way that I see it is that the djinn makes you think that it's granted your wish, right? Inside your own head. So that's why you don't fight against it, and that's why Dean was still himself, because initially with this he thinks that it's just been granted. Where that wish comes from, I think, is really interesting, because I think it must latch onto something that you do wish for. But then how that plays out is related to the individual and their own, like, desires and insecurities. Yeah,
definitely, especially at the end of this episode with the conversation with Sam and Dean at the end, because I mean, skipping the whole entire episode. We're doing our analysis now, because in his mind, if in Dean's mind, if they didn't have hunting, they wouldn't be as close as they are.
Yeah,
But Sam proves that actually I think we would still be that close.
Yeah, I think so too.
This episode proves how, like, low Dean's self-esteem is.
Yes.
Because, like, everybody passes off his comments as being drunk.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that this is what he does often?
Wow.
And, like, the whole working as, like, not to say working as a mechanic is bad or anything like that, but, like, he didn't aspire to be more than, again, what John wanted him to be.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we'll get into all of that. I wanted to establish here, like, how the djinn works, because I feel like it's really important as we talk about it moving forward, how we're framing it. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you see it one way or the other, this episode could be really different. Like, if you see it as just an alternate reality, it's kind of one thing. If you see it as someone's, like, hopes and dreams and, like, their own psyche, it can be seen as another way. So I think we're going with the second one.
I do too. I do want to hear from other people who might have seen it as another reality, because I can't see it that way.
Yeah.
But it would definitely, like, I would like someone to explain to me how they see it that way, because I'm sure it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I agree. So that all being said, in the episode we see Dean going to his warehouse. He has a knife with him and a torch. And he gets jumped by the djinn. They have a really brief struggle. And then I did really like this shot of the djinn putting his hand on his head. The blue effect's really cool. I've always thought the djinn were really cool, actually. Like how they kind of look.
They are.
Kripke said that the guy who played the djinn in this episode, they had to put all that tattoo stuff on him on a Sunday, and then they weren't shooting until the Thursday. So he had to, like, just keep all of that on himself, like going around his normal life, until they came to shoot. But he said he was a really good sport, but had trouble getting, like, taxis and stuff.
I'm sure. Yeah, no. This is what, 2007.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like face tattoos definitely had a different connotation than they do now.
Exactly. So yes, we get the blue hand effect. There's the title card, and then it goes straight in from that into, like, TV fuzz. And we see Dean waking up. And the first thing that I noticed when he woke up is that he was wearing a silver chain rather than the Samulet necklace. I think, as we go through the episode, that silver chain is actually a St. Christopher, which makes sense, because St. Christopher is the patron saint of travelling, I believe.
Okay.
I think so. It's quite a common thing. Well, it is in my family, at least, to give a son a St. Christopher when they become, like, a teenager. So they become, like, a man, as, like, almost like protection. I don't know if that's just because I come from, like, an Irish background. I'm not sure. If anyone else has that similar tradition, let me know, because I know a lot of men wear St. Christophers, but I'm not entirely sure why.
I did not know that.
I think it's supposed to protect you while you're, like, out on the road, right? So you're out traveling or going from place to place, essentially.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. This, you saying that, I've just realised, I think Sam and Dean are the only Americans in the history of America who don't claim to be anything but American. Like, they don't say that they're Irish. They don't say that they're, Scandinavian. They don't say that, or, like, anything like that. They're just two bros who get on the road.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite funny, yeah.
Stop saying you're Irish. You're not. You're not.
No.
You're American.
I'm not Irish. I have an Irish grandparent. I'm not Irish. Like, anyway. Yeah. So, there's a dark-haired woman sleeping next to Dean as well, who he kind of, like, just sort of looks at and is like, yep, okay. And then he goes out into their living room and starts to, like, have a look around. Okay, let's talk about the lighting. It was pointed out to me, I'm trying to remember who. I feel like Charlie, one of her Tumblr posts, but it may have been from somewhere else, so I apologise, that orange lighting is extremely important in Supernatural. Okay? And this whole episode is very warmly lit.
Yes.
Yes. It's often used, as we watch the seasons, we'll see, this warm lighting as a signal that things aren't real or they're not happening in the real universe. So I think it comes up again. I'm sure there's another June episode at some point. There's definitely, I'm trying to think of another episode where it's used, and I'm just coming up blank at the moment. But
I mean, changing channels.
I mean, yeah, changing channels. That's an easy one to pick. Like, yeah. So look out for this like orange glow, because here I know it's supposed to be like dawn or whatever, or even is it? It's not, because when he goes to the house later, it's still like dark. Anyway, so this whole section of this episode is lit like that. And if you think about the beginning of the episode where it's really dark and really grimy, it's in such contrast that you instantly know that something's off.
Right.
So he obviously, like, he looks around, he rings Sam, and Sam instantly accuses him of drinking because he's going off on him and like, why is he ringing him and what's going on? Through Sam, he finds out that the lady that he's sleeping next to is called Carmen. Then Sam kind of hangs up on him. I think, as you were saying at the beginning, I think it's really interesting how at the beginning of this episode, everyone accuses Dean of being drunk. Like,
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Mary does it, Jessica does it, and Carmen does it.
And Sam. Yeah.
And Sam. Yeah.
I mean, so is this starting to show already the kind of life that Dean has built for himself in this alternate reality? One in which his friends question and his family question regularly when he's acting strangely if he's been drinking, which is odd to me. Like, if this is like a wishful fantasy, what kind of view of yourself must you see in order for people to think that of you as their first interaction with you as you kind of meet them in this universe? I think this is kind of Kripke's fault. Because he does say in the commentary that when they were first developing this episode, he wanted Dean to be, and I quote him, a drifter loser.
Was that Dean's life, he was going to be pretty much a huge loser. You know, he was going to be kind of a barfly and wasn't really holding down a job and was just sort of like the ne'er-do-well brother.
He's happy because Sam is happy, but like actually his life is terrible. And Kripke, what? Like,
what is that? Have you not seen Dean's intelligence through all of this?
Yeah.
Like, he, if anything, right now in the actual supernatural universe, he's a drifter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say loser, not to put like money on it, but he doesn't make money. He doesn't have a house. He doesn't have anything. But we know that we know that Dean doesn't necessarily just want that, though.
No.
He's already said that.
Like, material items don't really matter to Dean in any way, really, other than the car, like, honestly. Right. So, okay, first of all, how does Kripke actually view his characters? I don't understand how we can have, and I think fans in general can have such a different view of a character than the person who created them. Is so odd to me. He said that he was kind of talked down from this idea. He said that even Bob Singer said to him, like, that he shouldn't do that, essentially, because it wouldn't make it different enough from the normal show, first of all, for it to be a good, like, alternate reality or whatever.
Right.
Kripke he kind of conceded on most points, but the only thing that he wanted to keep was the kind of friction between Sam and Dean in this episode, which, to be fair, I think does make sense. But he said, like, oh, people being happy and, like, living in, like, a nice paradise is lame and not supernatural.
Well, that's the whole point of a wish. Right?
Yeah. It made me think about how the series ended and how, like, you know, Kripke got involved in that, and how we probably never could have had our soft ending because, in his words, that's lame and not supernatural.
You know, if he had this perfect life and this great girlfriend and mom's alive and Sam's in law school, and on top of that they have like this really tight, like, seventh heaven relationship, like, lame. Like, it would be the most uninteresting episode of television you've ever seen.
I'm going to go listen to it because...
You definitely should.
What possible reason can you have beyond the fact that it's lame that you think it'd be a good idea for your, like, one of your driving characters to be such a disgrace, I guess?
I don't know. It's weird to me that like I said, that he views Dean this way, that without hunting, Dean is just nothing. Like, doesn't care about himself at all, only cares about Sam.
The whole reason he is so obsessed with Sam's happiness and making sure Sam's okay is because of John and the whole situation that they were put in. So without being put in that position, why would he feel so strongly about the happiness of Sam?
And him not having a job or whatever directly contradicts 2 episodes ago, like Hollywood Babylon, where he fits so nicely into that PA role, working well in a team, really enthusiastic about working and what he was doing. And, like, it's just not his... It would have been so out of character. Like, I'm so glad someone talked Kripke down from this, because it would not have made any kind of sense for this episode to be like that.
No.
It's just the disrespect for Dean Winchester. Like, I know he's a fictional character. Like, I know this. But, like, the disrespect. Anyway, so he finds a letter on the table and finds out that they're living in Lawrence, Kansas. And then he kind of sees something on a dresser or, something, and looks distraught, like really upset. It's a photo that we don't get to see because he drops it on the floor and it smashes. And he leaves. So he's obviously come to some kind of realization. So Dean drives to his house in Lawrence. I noticed all through this that he's obviously wearing a different jacket. Makes sense. He doesn't have John's jacket in this universe, so he wouldn't be wearing it. As he walks up to the door, importantly, like, a light comes on and, like, blinds him in his face. That's quite, like, visually quite important. As he knocks on the door. And Mary answers.
Dean.
Mom?
What are you doing here? Are you all right?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna have one little thing about Jensen Ackles' acting, and then we'll leave it for the rest of the episode. But, like, oh my god, he smashed out this park this episode. I can't believe how good it was. The way he says "Mum" when she opens the door, like, oh.
The thing that got me was, like, the flinch.
Oh.
The flinch.
Oh
my god. He's like, he wants it so bad, but, like, it doesn't feel real, so he has to, like,
physically get away from it. Oh, he's such a good actor. Like, underrated, I feel, in so many ways, so often. And, like, I can't wait to see him do other stuff other than Supernatural now, because, like, I hope we see the full I feel like we've already seen the full range, but, like, the full range of not having to be Dean for a bit. Yes, so Mary, and he just sounds so lost, like, just so, like, what, I don't know. I can't describe how good his acting is. Just go watch the episodes, guys, and, like, pause it and rewatch it and over again and be like, yes, the best actor of all time.
Okay, so there is something else I wanted to add to that.
Yes.
This whole next scene with his acting, he just stares at her.
Yes.
The entire time. Like, they did a pretty good job. Like, he did a good job with not blinking and obviously then cutting when he had to blink.
Yeah.
But, like, he is just unblinking, straight staring at her face. And I'm like, Samantha Smith, how did you get through that? How did you get through that intensity?
Kripke on Samantha Smith coming back. He's like, oh yeah, it's really nice to see her back, because, to be honest, the whole show is about Mary. And I was like, yeah, he's kind of right with that, And he's like, but we know nothing about her. And I was like, yes, Kripke, finally getting on board with the ideas. And then he described her as the perfect and idyllic mother. And I was like, well, you ruined it.
Oh, God. I mean, we still don't really learn anything about Mary.
No.
In this episode. We learn nothing about Jessica.
Nope.
Apart from her hair is different.
So this is it. Like he was saying, like it's nice to see these women back in Supernatural because we don't see them very often, and it's nice to learn more about them because we hardly heard them speak. And I'm like, but where did we learn that? Where did we learn the things though? Because yeah, Mary's still extremely two-dimensional in this episode. She's just a mother. Like she's just there to be a mother.
Yep, it's her birthday. We don't know how old she is.
Mm-mm.
We don't know what she ever did for work.
Nope. Does she have a hobby? Does she drive a car? Like even these kinds of basic things. Does she have a nickname for Dean? That would have been quite nice.
Yeah.
You know, does she call Sam Sammy? Like all these little things. Anyway, we don't know much. So, as he walks into the living room to talk to Mary, he asks her like a question to prove that it's her, and he asks her, you know, what did you always tell me before you put me to bed? And she answers correctly to him.
I told you angels were watching over you.
And that's when Dean goes in for just the best hug ever.
Mm-hmm.
You can see there's kind of like tears in his eyes, almost like he's not crying, but like close to it.
Yeah. The lip quiver is back.
The lip quiver is back in a vengeance. He kind of says like about, you know, not thinking that wishes can come true, or he kind of trails off. He hugs her again. There's lots of like, it's really emotional. Like I love it so much. I love it when he just like looks at her and tells her that she's beautiful. I'm like, oh, Dean.
Like, we don't see this kind of reunion in season 13.
No.
It's very different. Like, I know they've been through a lot, and like I guess he's kind of a little. He's never over it. They could have recreated this for season 13, and it would have been like amazing. But it's really not.
I think.
Or whatever season it was.
I think when Mary comes back, I don't think you could have had this at that point, because Dean's been through so much. He just doesn't believe that anything good can happen at that point. He's still hopeful here. Bad things haven't happened to him quite as much yet. But
yeah, that's true. They haven't faced an apocalypse yet.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he could have had the same reaction to Mary coming back, because of all of that. And I don't think when she did come back, he initially believed that it was real. But we'll talk about that. He asks about like if the fire ever happened, and she says no. He goes around and looks at the pictures. Oh my god, the pictures!
Like it would have worked back in 2007 TV, but like high definition, you can see like the editing.
Like you can see the ones that are photoshopped, but some of them are just pictures of like Jared and Jensen from their like childhood. Yeah, which is so great.
Actual graduation.
That's so great. He finds a picture of John, and apparently John was on a baseball or a softball team. But Mary's talking about him in the past tense, so he's dead. Which, can we just talk for a second about John being dead in Dean's Wish?
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. I didn't clock that. I was just like, oh yeah, because he's dead in the real world, so of course he'd be dead here. But no, yeah. Huh.
So does Dean think that in order for him to be happy, he needs his mom, he needs his brother, but he doesn't need John.
Well, because Mary was not there throughout like his childhood, the wish is that he wants to see her, I guess, or wants her to be alive at whatever cost, and the cost would be John, maybe, or from a storyteller point of view, it makes more sense, because I think if John was still alive in this episode, it would have been completely different. Like in this way, you can see the relationship between Dean and Mary.
Yeah, and John fills up a room, right? It would have all been about John and Dean's relationship. Yeah, I think you're totally right.
Only because they don't know how to write Mary. I mean, they still don't. But
you're right. If they had written John into this episode, Mary would have been completely sidelined. Yeah. So Mary says that John died of a stroke because Dean asks what got him. Obviously, like he says it like it's a monster.
And the thing that killed him was
A stroke. He died in his sleep, you know that.
That's great.
Excuse me?
That's great. That he went peacefully. I mean, it sure beats the alternative.
And I just wrote in my notes, like, big sigh. Just a big sigh. just a really big sigh. Because, and I know I'm going off on a lot of tangents here for the episode, but, like, this is one that just got me straight. Because, okay, sure beats the alternative of dying while hunting. Sure beats the alternative. So, in Dean's fantasy, it was good for John to go out in a peaceful way rather than hunting, which is directly contradicts what he said to Sam before, where he was like, this is Dad's legacy, he would have wanted to go down out like this, which is directly mirrored in the finale, right? Because Dean is John, so this is how it's always supposed to end for him, that's how it's always supposed to end for John. But in Dean's fantasy,
so the way I read that was it beats the alternative of making a deal.
I guess so. Or being in hell. He knows John's in hell as well, I guess.
That's the way I read it, but reading it that way, I'm just like, oh god, I hate it even more. Yeah. Ugh.
I just think there's a lot in this early seasons that were directly supposed to be mirrored in the last few episodes of Supernatural that are then completely contradicted by other episodes. It's like they didn't read the source material, so this is just one of those examples, and like other ones I've brought up before, that really bother me in some way, where it's like, you only did the surface level work.
You took your recollections of the episode,
yes,
and wrote an ending for it.
I think so. Mary says to him again, like, you've been drinking, so brought up again. Dean has to stop Mary from ringing Carmen because he doesn't want to go back to her. He wants to stay in their house. And he sits down and, like, Mary holds his face. He, like, cups his face gently. And, like, the way he kind of, like, leans into it, just perfect. She asks Dean if he's all right, and he says that, I think so. And Mary says to Dean, like, I love you. And as she walks out, Dean says, me too. So he doesn't actually say to her that he loves her. I think he has issues with those words.
He doesn't really say it to anybody, right?
No, I don't think so.
Oh god. If anybody else picks up on why I just said, oh god, let me clarify. I didn't pick up on. 1518. How did he react? He says you too, but like, it was a long time before he reacted. She was already gone.
Yeah.
Out of the room.
It was a long old time before he reacted. Yeah, he said, even me too, to her. Just 1518 was a perfect episode and I love it. And it was all completely in character. That's my opinion on that.
I am in agreement with you on that one, and if we can get that to Jensen that he was perfect in that moment, then that'll be great.
Yeah, I think so too. He got a lot of stick for that, but I really do think it's absolutely perfect. It's got so many rants this episode. This is too much. So it's morning. Dean wakes up. There's a great shot of all the Winchesters in sweaters, which is just amazing. I love that so much. The good photoshopping, and it's he realizes that it was all real. It all kind of happened. So he rings Sam again, but he doesn't pick up this time. There's kind of a weird scene here. Where he goes to speak to a professor about gin, and they kind of talk about whether or not wishes can be granted. In the commentary from Kripke, they said that it was fairly difficult because Dean had no one to talk to about gin in this episode. When they originally wrote it, it was kind of like full of long monologues about him trying to figure stuff out by himself. So they kind of wrote in this professor character literally for exposition and to have someone for him to talk to about it.
That makes sense. This scene also sort of shows that Dean is still Dean.
Yes.
Yeah, he's still investigating. He's still like his usual charming self of being able to like get information from people. Like, he just says like, "Oh yeah, I'm in your class." He's like, "I don't believe you," which makes me wonder, like, could you not just go to a professor who is specialized in something and be like, "Hey, I have a whole bunch of questions that I want to ask you"? Would they not want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think most academics like to talk about their work.
So, I don't think you would have to, like... I mean, I guess you would have to maybe, like, make an appointment and this kind of stuff. So, it might be faster just to say that you're a student and need help.
Like, okay, this is actual legitimate advice. If you're at university and you need to read like a paper or something that you can't get through because of a paywall, just find the author and try and find their LinkedIn or their email and message them and ask them for the paper, because nearly like 100% of the time they will email you back with the paper for free. Because academics like talking about their work. So yeah, maybe you need to make an appointment if you want to see them in person, but I think most people would be willing to do so. Yeah, so
you don't have to lie to go see a professor.
No, I think most people would.
Which is why I think he also got like the professor sort of let it go.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about my specialty subject. Like, of course he's going to talk to him. One interesting thing that Dean says in this scene is like, do they grant wishes even if you don't say them out loud? So he obviously had a wish in mind that he had thought of, that he thinks that Jin has granted at this point.
So this kind of got me a little confused, because they know that Jin feed on people.
Yeah.
Because clearly they're investigating the case because something has happened to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have like exposition on that. So, you know, Dean is trying to convince himself that Jin are not evil in this. But he knows that they kill people. So is this him trying to justify like stopping, or is this purely just because they wanted to talk about what Jin do?
I think it's both, because I think first of all he's trying to justify that this is real to himself, and secondly he does ask in this like, well, why would Jins grant wishes? Like, is it for self-defense? Is it for this and that? And obviously the professor doesn't have an answer because he's like, Jins aren't real. But you can kind of see Dean's thought process of like, why has this happened to me? So yeah, I think he's kind of trying to justify for himself. He can kind of relax a little bit. Maybe he thought that they, maybe they kill people, but maybe they sometimes grant wishes. There's a whole thing, because they don't seem to know a lot about Jin. Sam was doing a lot of research, and he had loads of books in front of him before Dean went to that warehouse. So I think they were still in the middle of figuring out that case. So he comes back outside from talking to the professor, and he opens up Baby's trunk and sees just it's full of fast food wrappers and Maxim magazines. Like, fine. I guess we're still stereotyping Dean in some ways in this episode.
I wrote he's still messy.
Still messy. And also, yeah, the magazines.
Who'd have thought, baby? We're civilians.
Except across the street, he sees a woman in white who's just sort of staring at him in a ghostly fashion. Yeah. So he tries to walk over to see her, almost gets hit by a car, and as he's distracted by that, she disappears. Kripke made a comment here about how much it rains in Vancouver and how it was raining really hard in the scene, and that's kind of added to the look of Supernatural overall, the fact they can never get a clear day to shoot anything. He also said that he spoke to Jensen a lot about this acting in this episode, just to go off a little bit, and apparently because it was so different from normal Dean, like Kripke gave him the note, I guess, that Dean's supposed to be like a little boy in this episode, like, really happy and excited. And apparently Jensen made the comment of this episode was very much like going down the rabbit hole, which I thought was quite interesting, and how different it was, I guess, from normal Supernatural. Again, like, the commentary is an interesting insight into this. And you can kind of see that in the acting, because he very much, and this is why I think this works so well, especially in the scenes with Mary, Dean's very much dropped his Dean persona, his John persona, and you can see it completely kind of falls away, and he acts like, we get flashes of it every now and then, like in Hollywood Babylon. There's another episode I'm thinking where we see this kind of like, I want to say like fun and happy Dean.
It's very much like a softness, like he doesn't have to put the pretense of like being in charge and all. We did see it a little bit in Folsom Prison Blues as well.
Yeah, I think so.
With him being able to adapt to like prison. I mean, it's not quite as jovial as Hollywood Babylon.
Yeah.
But he is definitely like, it's weird that he seems more relaxed in prison.
Yeah. it was that an odd episode. I thought it's interesting that we kind of see it all through this episode, whereas before we've only really seen it in flashes. and saying that the next scene is Dean eating a sandwich that Mary's made for him, and he's eating that sandwich like it's the best sandwich he's ever had in his whole life.
This is the best sandwich ever.
Thank you.
He did say he wanted a home-cooked meal. I mean, I guess it's as close as he's going to get for now. And he kind of asks about Sam, and Mary says, like, Sam's going to be here soon, don't worry. And asks him whether or not he should go to work. And he's like, work? What work? And she says that he works at a garage, but he decides not to go because he wants to mow the lawn. Like, and she says to him, it's like you've never mowed a lawn before in your life. And he's like, well... He does a face like, well, yeah. Again, like this scene of him mowing the lawn is incredibly bright. Apparently they were really lucky with the weather that day. And, we said before about Hollywood Babylon and like how they were getting notes in the studio about it being too dark. Well, yeah. Kripke kind of directly confirmed this here because apparently when they saw the dailies from this episode, they were like, it's so bright and so nice. Like, see, you can do it.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. I want to say, like, the moment that I realized that the moment that stuck out to me for like how colorful and saturated it was was a little bit before this, where it was like you could see how tan Dean was, and then the grass was really green.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, someone amped up the saturation too much because he's orange. I mean, not orange, but like he's beyond healthy.
I told you, orange glow, nothing's real.
Yeah, there it is. The blue sky also got me too. I was like, when is there ever a blue sky?
Yeah, in Supernatural, when is there ever a blue sky? Like, seriously. I love it. He's like waving to neighbours. It even zooms in on like the white picket fence. And it's like, okay, we get the symbolism. And then he's sitting on the porch drinking a beer. The beer brand is El Sol, which...
What's the sun?
It means the sun. It does mean the sun. And also, if you didn't know this already as like long-term Supernatural watchers, they only ever drink El Sol in places that aren't real. So I like that. And this must have been where this originated from, I guess. All this symbolism, I was surprised wasn't in like Kripke's commentary on this episode, but I don't know if this is because this episode establishes that and they only maybe thought about it when they went to do another episode like this and was like, how did we shoot that last episode? Is there any things we can continue on to like show this or something? So a car pulls up. It's Sam and Jessica. Oh my God.
What?
They actually said this was really tough because the actress who plays Jessica, so Adrienne, I think her name is Adriana, she was off doing another show, so they had to really like fit her into the schedule, which is maybe why she's not in this episode as much as she possibly could be. Yeah, so like Dean runs up and hugs her and like squeezes her and she's like, I can't breathe.
Oh, Jessica.
Good to see you too, Dean. Can't breathe.
Sammy,
hey,
look at you. You with Jessica? I don't believe it.
This was like, for me, it was just like, why? Why would you be so happy? I mean, I get what she symbolizes by being alive.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know her at all. Like, in pilot, he's dismissive of her.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, again, we don't see these conversations that happen, but Sam must have spoken about her.
Yeah. Like,
what she did, what she aspired to do, like, everything like that. You know, would have been nice to have been able to hear those conversations, but this is what it is. Because that's the only way that kind of like hug and squeeze makes any sort of sense.
Yeah, but I think it's just, I don't know. It is odd how he reacts to her, you're right, but I think you said like the symbolism of her being alive is that Sam's happy and that the demon's maybe not about... There's a lot of things that she symbolizes in being alive.
Right.
Sam kind of walks up and he kind of, again, accuses him of drinking. I know Dean has a beer in his hand, but he's kind of like, you know, like getting started early. Or I think he makes some kind of comment because it's Mary's birthday. And even like Dean's like, oh no, that's today. And Sam just seems very disappointed in him.
So, I have a question. is it Mary's birthday in the real world? Or is this in Dean's mind that this is the only way that they can all come together?
Yeah, this is it. I think this is just in Dean's mind. I'm pretty sure it's not Mary's birthday. That's probably why he's so confused, because Dean would definitely know when Mary's birthday is. Just have to talk about something, like, again, just talking about the commentary on here. So Kripke was saying, it's really nice to see all these women back in Supernatural because we have an unfortunate habit of killing women in the show. Okay. You know you have a problem, like, address it, but fine.
And so we end up being a show with just Jared and Jensen, because we keep killing off all the women. So it's like, I understand why there's such like a major homosexual subtext to the show, like why everyone accuses us of it, because it's always just two guys on the road, man. And how can you not eventually have thoughts turn to that, I suppose. But
what? No, that's not what happens. I think you've completely missed the entire point of what people were saying about killing off women. It's not about it coming back to Sam and Dean and possible...
No.
Ugh. No, it's just about the fact that it's not homophobia. It was not homophobia. It's misogyny.
Yeah. Well, the word you're looking for is not homosexual subtext. The word you're looking for is misogyny. Yeah, I was really surprised by this comment. Okay, I kind of knew that Kripke had said this. Like, I'd seen it written before. But actually hearing him say it on the commentary, there's a difference between, like, knowing something and hearing something and being like, oh my God, you said that? So,
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, acknowledging the fact that if you have no women in the show, there are going to be deeper relationships between the men on your show. So maybe they could be read as homosexual. Not between Sam and Dean, they're brothers. But let's skip forward maybe like a few seasons and think about the other characters that we have come in. The only deep and meaningful relationships that your characters have are with other men, because you don't write women into your show. So how can we be surprised when people read into that subtext? And also, Kripke's acknowledging there is subtext here, although the subtext here is no. So why do they then deny that subtext later on between other characters?
Yeah.
There's several times in this commentary as well that Kripke makes reference to reading internet comments and says, like, actually, some of them are really bad and, like, some of them are quite hurtful, etc. But, like, he does make a reference that he was reading internet comments at this point. So he must have been aware of that section of the fandom, which is maybe what led him to make this comment. What I do find interesting is the fact he was very aware of the, I don't even know how to say this, of the subtext that he was writing into his show. But the problem is, I guess, is that they then didn't acknowledge that into like season 4 and season 5 when Kripke was still on the show about the subtext that they were drawing between Dean and Cass.
So everybody knows that Cass was only supposed to be in for like 3 episodes, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't even supposed to be around for that long.
Mm-hmm.
So they could, in the beginning, they could lean into it pretty hard.
Yeah.
Which I think is what they kind of did.
Yeah.
Not realizing that Cass was not going to stay for 12 years.
Yeah. So what you're saying is they queerbaited us thinking there's only going to be for 3 episodes.
Yeah,
and then we're
basically.
like, oh no, we made a mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it as well. Yeah. Okay. So they all go out for a meal. Dean's wearing a nice little shirt and jacket. Oh, a nice little shirt and tie, I should say. And they kind of bring him food and it's a salad and he makes a face and everybody laughs. Like, ha 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 ha.
Well, it's like an asparagus tower. Like, who does that?
I like asparagus.
I mean, me too, but not like, why do you have to stand them up into like a... They could be like, anyway, whatever.
Also, who ordered? Did like Sam just order for everyone? Because power move, and like also why would you not ask people what they wanted? I assume Sam's paying because he's a fancy lawyer and Dean's just a mechanic. Oh no.
Well, so he's still in law school though, right?
Yeah, but they're kind of making out he's like fancy, I feel.
Yeah.
By the outfits that he's
definitely.
wearing, like he's driving a car, etc. So they all toast Sam and Jess kiss, and Dean still looks very happy. He's like looking around the table, just looking real happy, real like in his element. Carmen kind of asks if he's okay and offers to get him a cheeseburger later, which I kind of like that, to be fair. I thought that was quite cute.
I hate this line that she says, though, after that, because he asks, why are you with me, kind of, essentially, and she says she has low standards. I'm like, ugh, no.
But this is what Dean thinks of himself. No one would choose him.
Lots of people would choose you, Dean. I choose you.
It again, like it's saying, it's just another dig at his self-esteem. Even in his own fantasy world, his girlfriend's with him just because that's the best she's settled, and he's working in a garage because he couldn't possibly do anything else. And it's actually very sad when you start to think about it.
So stop thinking about it.
And then Sam announces that him and Jess are engaged.
Jessica, let me see that.
Congratulations, Sammy. Thanks. I'm really glad you're happy.
So Dean congratulates Sam, and then, but in the background, he sees the woman in white and kind of walks towards her. And when he looks back, they're all kind of staring at him in a really weird way. That's the first kind. If you haven't watched this before, it makes you think, oh, this definitely isn't real. I know, like, because you could kind of go along with, like, oh, he's been put into an alternate reality, maybe by this point. But the way they all stare at him when he looks back is just so eerie. It's like, this isn't real.
Definitely. I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because nothing has been established about Mary until much later. But looking at through a lens of, like, what we know now, that she was from a family of hunters. It's weird that, like, Mary's not picking up on, like, the hunter vibes that's going on. But at this point, Dean doesn't know that she was a hunter.
Yeah. And this is why it's his fantasy and not an alternate reality, I think. Yeah, exactly. Because it goes along with his knowledge of his family.
Yes.
And this could be why Mary doesn't have much of a personality in this episode, because how does he see her other than as a mother? You know, he was 4, so he wouldn't know that much about her as a person, really.
No, not really. It's just like she loves you and feeds you. It's kind of, that's how you see it as a 4-year-old.
Exactly, and that's exactly what she does here. She loves him and she feeds him a sandwich. So they all they arrive back at Mary's house, and Sam kind of asks him why Dean was acting weird, and he kind of brushes it off and says, like, oh, I thought I saw somebody I knew. Mary goes to bed, and so Sam and Jess kind of want to as well, but Dean asks them to go for a drink, like, well, we're all young and in love, like, we should go for drinks, like, to which Sam kind of, like, excuses the ladies, which, first of all, no, don't do this, because it's just like, can you give us a second? Like, it was a really weird moment. I don't know. I just didn't like the dismissiveness of it. Yeah.
Like, I get what they were trying to do, but, like, it could have been Sam walking up to Dean and be like, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah, not just, like, waving away the ladies. Like, take yourself to the drawing room. Like, yeah,
We must go into the cigar room.
Exactly. It had very about that vibe. And he talks to Dean and says, like, why are you acting like this? Why are you all warm and fuzzy all of a sudden?
Just happy for you, Sammy.
Yeah, right. That's another thing. Since when do you call me Sammy?
Oh, so Dean says, like, well, you're my brother. Like, that's why I call you that. And Sam says, well, you said that when you stole my ATM card, when you bailed on my graduation, when you hooked it with my prom date. So he's listing all these bad things that Dean did to him. Again, this is all in Dean's mind. Why would he think this about himself? That he is such a terrible brother? Because Dean even says here, like, yeah, that does sound like me. So this is the view he has of himself, that he steals, he doesn't turn up to things, and he sleeps with people he's not supposed to. Sam says, like, there's nothing that we really have in common at all. And Dean kind of says, well, we have hunting in common. And Sam's obviously never been hunting in the way that he thinks hunting is. Then it kind of, first of all, as it zooms out, this scene, Eric Kripke calls that the supernatural troubled profile. Which is very true. They do it a lot. And Dean and Carmen are together. She hands him a beer, which is an El Sol. And Dean even says that's my favourite. They talk about how Dean and Sam don't get along and that they don't really know each other. And Dean says here, and this is why I think this is important.
I can fix things with Sam. I can make it up to him. To everyone.
So, I think what's happened here is like, yes, so Dean in his own head has given himself all these problems, but then he's also going to fix them. So even in his own fantasy, he needs to have something in his life that he needs to fix and make better for other people, not for him, for Sam and for everyone. You know, he's going to fix it for everyone.
So, I mean, so what I was going to say about it earlier was Dean probably wasn't there for his high school graduation, right? Because school was never important to John, so therefore it wasn't important to Dean. That probably did happen. So he probably then put that a bit of like a catastrophist mindset of like, well, I didn't go to this one, so I wouldn't go to that one, which would mean I wouldn't do this one.
Yeah.
So maybe he didn't go to his like college graduation, and also he's thinking that Sam never got his graduation because he left Stanford before he could graduate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only one that you could kind of possibly explain. The other two, I don't know. He did flirt with Jessica as soon as he met her.
That's true. I think this is it. I just think that he's given himself issues to fix because I don't think he thinks that he can have a perfect life. Like he can't be happy without having something to fix.
And fixing cars was not enough.
Yeah, fixing cars is not enough. I love that. Dean says here, like, I've been given a second chance and I don't want to waste it. And then he kisses her and they get a bit hot and heavy. Kripke said here that the studio wanted a sex scene here, but Kripke was like, no, she's a busy nurse. She doesn't have time. I was like, okay. All right, Kripke. So it cuts to Dean watching TV alone and he's kind of flicking through the channels, through cooking, through news, through Thundercats. And he sees the news, and it's the anniversary of a plane crash, and it's the plane from Phantom Traveler that they never stopped because they aren't hunters in this universe that Dean's created for himself. He looks up and he sees that everything that they could have stopped has still happened. As he's kind of doing this, he sees a figure, and he follows it into the bedroom, opens the closet, and sees like some desiccated corpses like hanging in his closet. He turns around, the woman's there. She like flicks away like she's a ghost. And then he looks back into the closet and there's no bodies, just a whole lot of flannel.
So it's interesting what happens to the woman in this. Because in the first time we see her, she's like in clean white. There's nothing wrong with her. The second time she looks a little bit dirty. Yeah. And this time like she looks like a ghost. Yeah. In that's the sense that how they show ghosts in the show. So I initially equated her to Dean. She's obviously a lot worse off. Yeah. But like this slow progression into like this person's getting worse and worse and worse is exactly what's happening to Dean, that he's getting worse and worse and worse. I do find it interesting that, you know, they explain they explain why she's there in a little bit. And I find it interesting that he makes it so that she looks like a ghost versus like showing it in any other way. Yeah. Because that's how his mind would process it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's how that's how he's managing to notice her. Again, right. Interesting that in Dean's subconscious, he's still creating a supernatural threat and a supernatural problem. I think initially I thought this as being the same thing, like he's having to give himself problems because he doesn't think he deserves to be happy. But I actually, thinking on it now, think it's like a manifestation of his doubt that it was ever real in the first place. Yeah. Kind of two different things. Like they're the same thing, but kind of two different things, you know, like he's giving himself something to investigate because he doesn't think that it's real, that he still thinks the djinn wasn't a good monster that just granted him his wish. So there must be something up that he has to look for.
And I mean, it's it's kind of interesting when these ghosts appear, or the ghost appears, this woman appears. So the first time is after he starts to question the djinn.
Yeah.
With the professor. The second time is when he's genuinely happy for everybody.
Yeah.
And then there's this time where he is like distraught. So it's like every strong emotion, she appears.
Oh yeah, so she is Dean's ghost. We said like ghosts appear as strong emotions, so
yeah, and it's like it almost sort of levels him out. Like it brings his happiness down, but because it distracted him a little bit from the devastation of finding out that everything they hunted survived, which is kind of amazing that he remembers everything he's ever hunted, because obviously the journal doesn't exist in this, and if you wanna go the route of like, because he's in his mind, he can remember more, but I feel like that's kind of like, no, I don't think so. So I do wonder if like they journal actually, so that's why he remembers everything.
I think so. And he also looks up like pretty notable cases that they've done, like the one at the hotel and all those kinds of things. Like I feel like they would remember most of them. I think, yeah, he definitely does have an encyclopedic knowledge of the supernatural though. So I'm sure he's had to practice remembering things. I'm sure John used to make him recall stuff a lot.
That's true.
What kills a ghost? Yeah. What kills a werewolf? Like just quizzing him constantly.
And I'm sure as you do more, you don't have to research as much. God, I hate this next scene.
Okay. So this next scene, Dean goes to the graveyard and he's standing in front of John's headstone. It looks very much like Mary's headstone they've just repurposed. And he's talking to John and he's saying like, everyone we ever saved, everyone you ever saved, they're all dead. And now I'm being haunted too. My old life is coming after me. And it doesn't want me to be happy. So he thinks he's just being haunted by his old life. Like, he can't be left alone. And he says...
Of course, I know what you'd say. Well, not the you that played softball, but... Say, go hunt the djinn. It put you here, it can put you back. Your happiness for all those people's lives, no contest. Right? But why? And why is it my job to save these people? Why do I have to be some kind of hero? What about us, huh? When Mom's not supposed to live her life, Sammy's not supposed to get married. Why do we have to sacrifice everything, Dad?
And then he trails off. He says it's like it just sort of trails off. And I know, like I heard the like it's not fair. Like you can just hear it. Like he doesn't say it, but he's thinking like it's not fair. This isn't fair. So this scene. Is one shot. Kripke said they had a camera on a track going back and forth between the two different shots. So all of this that you see is just one shot of Jensen doing this scene.
Wow.
And apparently he made the crew cry.
I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. It was intense. And this, again, this works with John not being around, because if he had been able to confront him in this way, like it would have lessened this whole like monologue. Essentially.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it. I feel like this is one of the first few times that we've heard like them talk about sacrifice, like sacrificing something for everybody else.
Yeah,
and not necessarily like within family, but like. He's talking about why do I have to sacrifice everything for everybody, rather than why do I have to sacrifice myself for Sam?
Yeah,
which is just two very different things, because he's willing to do one and is resentful for the other.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, exactly. Not to talk about the finale again for a second, but I'm totally going to. I'm sorry. So I always questioned with 50 and 20, like why did they go back to hunting? And I guess you could explain it in this way, if you really wanted to, that throughout the seasons, Dean sees these snatches of, like, happiness, right? So here, there's other times where he has, like, brief moments of, like, being happy, being away from hunting, and then inevitably it's all just, like, taken down, right? So I wonder if by 1520, and I mean, this is why this is a tragic, it's a tragic ending, is like, and it's, the problem is it's framed as like, oh, they're still doing what they love, like hunting. It's not though. It's,
No.
I wonder if the reason that they went back to hunting was just the disbelief that they had won in any way. Because so much had been taken from them at that point that, like, what happiness was there to have? So, like, why not just go back to the, like, status quo?
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, you would think that Sam would protest it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because he has Eileen at that point.
Does he? But yeah.
I said at that point. At the beginning of the episode. Yes.
Yeah, he would hope. Yeah, he would hope so.
And for the rest of the episode, but we won't get into that. So I want to kind of go back to after we had watched 1519.
Mm-hmm.
We had spoken, and I said, surely Jack wouldn't have brought back the monsters.
Oh, yeah.
Which I do not think he would have.
It's not canon because it's stupid. Are we going with the Chuck 1 theory? Because that's my favourite theory at the moment, and like...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the only one that makes kind of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Ugh, it's just frustrating.
So we see Sam and Jess asleep, and we hear the Impala outside, and this scene is almost shot for shot the pilot. We see Sam come down the stairs with a baseball bat. He kind of fights Dean, but he does like a terrible job at it because obviously he's not a hunter. Like, he's never been trained to be a hunter. And Dean manages to pin him and says, like, that was so easy. I'm embarrassed for you. Sam turns on the light and he sees that Dean is stealing Mary's silverware. And he thinks this is the case. But Dean doesn't tell him why he's actually there. He says that he owes people money. Like, even in this, when he's going off to, like, hunt, which is obviously what he's doing, he's still holding on to the fact that this might be real, so he doesn't want to get Sam involved, I feel.
I think also at this point, he's somewhat accepted the view of what everybody has of him.
Yeah.
So it's probably easier just to be like, yeah, I owe money.
Exactly.
Rather than trying to explain that he's going to go hunt something.
He'd rather look kind of crappy in the eyes of his family than, like, put them in danger or, like, I don't know. Yeah. Dean says, I'm sorry and I wish I could stay to fix it. Do you think that, I don't think he was maybe planning to come back. If he'd hunted the gin and, like, killed it and found out this was actually all real and it was going to stay like this, I don't think he would have gone back to them. I don't know. Like, it's really hard to think what he's thinking here. But I guess what he's actually thinking is if he kills the gin, all this is going to disappear.
I don't know if he would have gone back.
Mm. This is it, because if it all turns out to be real, like, he now knows all the supernatural stuff exists, so would he then continue to be a hunter? Yeah, exactly. So even in his own kind of fantasy, he's having to give up his family and his life to maybe become a hunter. And, like, Dean, honey, go to therapy.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, it's a little less, like, heartbreaking because he knows that he has actually somewhere to go back to.
That's true. Maybe. I don't know. Sometimes that makes it worse, actually. I think. If you know you could be somewhere and be happy, but you feel like you have to choose to be away for self-sacrificial reasons, I feel like that's actually worse.
But at the same time, Sam's not involved, so he can, like, I don't know. Yeah.
So he says to Sam, like, I've got to do this, like, people's lives depend on it. And then he says, tell Mom that I love her. So it took him, like, 2 days to be able to say that kind of back to Mary. And even then he's saying it to her through Sam.
What are you talking about, Dean?
Nothing. Forget it. Just, hey, tell Mom I love her.
He leaves and sits in his car for a bit. And then, sort of out of nowhere, Sam gets into. And they kind of argue about whether or not Sam should come or not, which is great. It feels very reminiscent of them as normal.
Get out of the car.
I'm going with you.
You're just gonna slow me down.
Tough.
This is dangerous and you could get hurt.
Yeah, and so could you, Dean.
Same?
Look, whatever stupid thing you're about to do, you're not doing it alone. And that's that.
And Dean kind of tests that out by calling him a bitch.
Bitch.
What are you calling me a bitch for?
You're supposed to say jerk.
What?
Never mind.
So they drive. Sam finds his pot of blood in the car, which is also a great moment. And Dean kind of says, well, you know, I need a silver knife dipped in lamb's blood. And Sam's immediately like, stop the car, we're getting out, you're Looney Tunes. Like,
I do love the fact that, like, so Sam starts to dial a number and Dean just reaches across and throws the phone out the window.
Like, nope.
Not today, boy.
And I said here, Dean's persona is back. As soon as he left that house and got in the car, his persona's back, right? This is
the Dean we know.
Yeah, not soft Dean. So they pull up. Sam's asleep because it's been a really long drive. He asks where they are, and Dean says, we're not in Kansas anymore. In the warehouse, Sam's trying to convince him to leave all the time. And this is kind of where it was getting a bit suspicious because he's like so determined to leave. And it kind of makes sense with the character that Sam is here, but also like he's so like not wanting to go any further and trying to convince him to go back to the house. They eventually do find those bodies that Dean saw in the closet, like they look exactly the same. And the girl who kind of looks like she's dead, but she is still alive. She kind of does a little like groan. The djinn appears and they kind of hide behind some boxes and stuff. And they see him like go up to the girl and like drink some of her blood and put her back to sleep. And as he's kind of drinking her blood, Sam makes like a noise like ugh, which is great. But luckily the djinn doesn't see them and it leaves again. And this is kind of where Dean figures it out, right? He kind of puts all the puzzle pieces back together. He sees a rope opposite the girl and he sees a light bulb. So throughout the episode, there's been points where he gets like a light suddenly turn on in his face. Or, you know, there's been some kind of weird light. And this is because like hanging is a light bulb there, like flickering. He then has flashes of himself like tied up and seeing this light bulb, essentially.
What if I'm like her? What if I'm tied up in here someplace? What if all this is in my head?
Dean pulls out a knife and says like, well, there's only one way to find out. Like, if you're in a dream, there's an old wives' tale that if you're in a dream and you die, you wake up. Which is okay. Dean says like, I'm pretty sure, 90% sure, which is sure enough. Which is not sure enough, Dean. That's not sure enough to do this.
No, not at all. It does make me wonder, like, what is holding him back from thinking that this is, like, not real? We have decided that this is in his mind, right? But if this is an alternative reality,
yeah,
I feel like killing yourself in that might just end everything.
Yeah, that seems permanent. Yeah. And like they've just seen the djinn. It's weird for the djinn to turn up in Dean's dream. Like I feel like seeing it would almost confirm it's an alternate reality, not that it's. I guess you don't know how vivid the flashes are of him being tied up. Right. Because it's only visual, but maybe like he also felt the sensation of like his hands being tied, etc. But I mean, Sam manages to stop him and says like, wait. And then this is where it turns into like, obviously this isn't happening. Which I feel is a mistake on the djinn's part, but I guess it doesn't have much control over what it's seeing, or what it's giving people. Because Mary appears, so do Carmen and Jessica. Just pointing out here that all this scene, Kripke made a very good point that Rael Tucker wrote all of this emotional stuff because he's not very good at it. So Sam kind of confronts him and like the facade drops and he says like, you know, you were happy. They all ask him to put the knife down. Dean kind of tells him you're not real. There's a lot here. They're trying to get him to stay.
It's still better than anything you had.
What?
It's everything you want. We're a family again. Let's go home.
I'll die. The djinn will drain the life out of me in a couple of days.
But in here with us, it'll feel like years. Like a lifetime.
Carmen offers him a family, like, you can have a family with me. Jessica says, like, you don't have to worry about Sam anymore because he's looked after. And then Sam finally says, like, why is it our job to save everyone? Like, give me the knife. Oh, Mary touching Dean's face in this scene is too much. Because, again, like, even though he knows now, because they've appeared out of nowhere that she's not real, he still leans into it. Mm-hmm. Like, he so desperately wants it to be real. It's so sad.
Or is it, like, you know, getting that last touch before you know what you have to do? Like, you just, you know, this is the last time that this could happen.
That's really sad, Annabelle. Then it's probably correct.
This scene got me thinking, like, how much of what they're saying is Dean trying to convince himself, like his subconscious trying to convince himself, and the Jinn trying to say, like, no, I need you to stay because I need you to be fed on. And I don't think I ever figured it really out, so I was just wondering what you thought, like, whether if this was, or is it maybe both?
I think it would make sense if in the Jinn's, like, fantasy that it builds, it has some kind of self-defense mechanism built into it to stop people from waking up. I feel like this was the wrong move with Dean, because if that was the case, because it just kind of gave him that 100% this is not real rather than 90% this is not real. But I think the things that they say have to come from the person's own subconscious. So it's kind of offering him all the things that he wants. Stability and safety and a family, you know, not having to worry about hunting anymore, not having to constantly protect Sam, all of these things that Dean does want, like, deep down. But that has to be coming from somewhere, because the Jinn can't necessarily know all these things, I don't feel. It has to come from Dean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And of course, because as Kripke says in this, he's a tragic hero. I know.
Eye roll. Huge
roll.
eye roll.
Dean steps away and stabs himself through the heart. Hey. Hey, Kripke. This happened last episode too. Why the fascination with the heart, my friend? Like, I know it's the center for all emotion and love and... Yeah, okay. They do a really nice cut of, like, Sam's face from going from dream Sam to real Sam. I quite liked that transition. As he's, like, it goes from him trying to wake Dean up as he's tied up. Dean makes another Wizard of Oz reference here and says, like, Auntie M, there ain't no place like home.
I thought I lost you for a second. You almost did.
So already kind of referencing that he almost stayed.
Yeah.
Sam kind of has a fight with the Jinn because it appears from nowhere.
I really liked the way they did this, like his eyes coming out of the darkness.
Yes, it's great.
Oh, that was good. That was really good.
As Sam's fighting the Jinn, Dean's, like, struggling to get free, but it manages to pin Sam and kind of does the blue light thing. But of course, Dean appears and stabs it. Like, of course, it was always going to happen. Like, I knew where this fight was going, like, from the off.
So here's a fun thought experiment. What would have been Sam's wish?
See, I don't necessarily think his wish would be, what if Mary was alive? I don't think he has that emotional connection to her because he was so young when she died, unfortunately. I feel it would be more like, what if Jessica hadn't died? So no demon stuff. So it would essentially be similar, but maybe he would like to see Dean happy, you know, Dean going to college and fulfilling his kind of potential and, you know, settling down and not having to worry about him so much.
Because, like you've said multiple times, Sam has always been the optimist. So I don't think Sam would have been able to get out of his wish.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because he doesn't have the same drive as Dean to want to always fix things. He's very much happy to be happy.
That's true, actually. I think the problem is that they go into these with all their memories, and I think Sam would want to investigate how it happened, at least, to prove that it was real. I think that investigation drive would still be there.
Dean would definitely get Sam out. it wouldn't have been Sam getting himself out. I don't think Sam would resent him either for it.
No. I think, to be honest, I feel like it would have played out very similar to this, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, yeah. Like, I think the story might have been a little bit different, but, I mean, Sam's could have been revenge. It could have been what if, or like, I wish I could kill the yellow-eyed demon. I don't know. That's interesting. What do you guys think? What would Sam's wish have been? How would that have played out? I guess, yeah.
Because again, Sam's motivation for things hasn't really ever been clearly established beyond the point of like, it's the like, I've done it all my life and then Jessica died.
Yeah.
After that, then it's just like, okay.
Well, this is it. I think at this point his motivation is still revenge against Yellow Eyes. Yeah. So I feel like it would have been related to that. I think that probably even bypasses his wish for Jessica to be alive. I mean, that sounds really callous, but at this point, I think it's true.
I think so too.
He's just too focused. He's too much like John. Yeah.
Maybe it would have been like, because they were very close at the hospital, right? In the beginning of the season. So maybe it would have been like John not dying and being able to kill the demon at that point and seeing like what their life would have been like.
I mean, possibly, yeah. I do feel like it would be wrapped up in the demon, definitely.
Yeah. Rather
than like, wishing for something like, Dean's whole life to be changed. Yeah. So, Dean finds the girl and finds out she's alive. I don't know why. I always have this scene very clearly in my mind when he like cuts her down. I don't know, there's something about the way he just like holds her really gently. I thought it's just really nice. And I think what was interesting is that you said earlier that she was almost a mirror for Dean throughout the episode of seeing the state that she was in. And I wonder if in the way that he was kind of like holding her, he was kind of almost comforting himself in like, it's fine, you're out of this, like, I got you kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know what her wish would have been, but we do know it's something about her father.
Yeah.
Because she like makes a reference to it. Mm-hmm. Like she says it out loud. So since it plays on what you know.
Yeah.
She's not upset that she's back in the real world.
No.
So basically, again, the Jin's not very good at what he does. Because I feel like people want to get out of their wishes. Like something, it's like the whole like, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it.
Yeah, exactly. For Dean, everything wasn't perfect. But again, I don't know if that almost makes it more believable in some way too.
It's a bit jarring going from like, you're fine and healthy, or you're fine in your dream world, and then you come back and like you're like in severe pain and like really weak.
Yeah.
So of course you wouldn't just like let them just lie on the floor in a dirty warehouse.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true.
But no, yeah, it was very sweet. It did stick out.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he's also sort of, is his way of saying thank you, because without her, he wouldn't have started to put things together.
That's true. Yeah, I think so. Because obviously he was seeing her from opposite the other side of the warehouse where he was tied up. So no, yeah, I think so. I like that a lot. They're back at the motel room where Sam was before. I really like all the lights in this. It's obviously like making some kind of reference to the whole episode. The lights on the wall, and anyway. And Sam's asking him if he's all right. And for once, Dean kind of doesn't. He says yes, but actually elaborates on it.
Yeah.
For once.
Should have seen it, Sam. Our lives. You were such a wussy.
So we didn't get along then, huh?
No.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be this perfect fantasy.
It wasn't. It was just a wish. I wish for Mom to live. Mom never died. We never went hunting, and you and me just never,
Yeah.
It's trying to kind of not say that this was in Dean's head, like this wasn't a fantasy, that it was kind of an alternate reality. But I know, it definitely was.
But I'm glad you dug yourself out, Dean. Most people wouldn't have the strength. They would have just stayed.
Yeah, lucky me. I gotta tell you though, man, you know, you had Jess. Mom was gonna have grandkids.
Yeah, but Dean, it wasn't real.
I know. But I wanted to stay.
And that he wanted to stay. So he says out loud to Sam here that he wanted to stay where he was.
We've lost so much. We've sacrificed so much.
But people are alive because of you. It's worth it, Dean. It is. It's not fair, and, you know, it hurts like hell, but it's worth it.
Okay, after Sam says like it's worth it, they do this shot back to Dean's face, and it so much implies, like so much reads as like him kind of communicating like, is it worth it? And then it just ends the episode on that, and you're like, oh, he never said it, but he's definitely thinking, is it worth it?
And he kind of looks at the camera, looks right down
Oh.
at your soul. Like, he's not quite directly at it, but like it's very, very close. And it's almost saying like you're right, is it worth it? And like, you, the audience, do you think it's worth it?
Yeah. The thing is, oh my gosh, this is only season 2. And already he's being like, we've sacrificed so much, we've lost so much. And I'm like, yeah, you have, but like, you've got so much more to lose. Like, it's so painful to watch this, knowing how it goes and how it ends. And it never gets any better. I mean, they meet people along the way that make it better. They do.
But then they lose a lot of people on the way too.
It just gives them more to lose. Why is this a tragedy? So,
I thought this was supposed to be a dumb show about hunting ghosts.
well, Kripke referred to it in his commentary as a modern Western.
Yeah, no, I can see that now, actually. Because Westerns are they never end well.
But you know how they do end? Walking into a sunset. Yeah.
So, we have issues with this episode. So many.
Yeah.
And the fact it keeps coming back to the end of this whole bloomin' show.
Yeah, I know.
It's that whole argument of like, they didn't grow. But they did, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So, and look at that. It's another episode 20. Another episode 20. The last episode 20 was also relevant.
That's true. Why? Oh, I fully remember this episode, and when I first watched it, I initially really, really liked it. I thought it was a really good exploration of Dean's character, what he would be like without hunting. Rewatching it, knowing all of his character development and how he becomes later on, it's actually really quite painful to watch.
Yes.
Him think so little of himself, because that's what this episode is. This is an exploration into Dean's psyche and his self-esteem, and you can just see how little he thinks of himself without hunting. You know, it seems to be the only thing that gives his life any meaning other than looking after Sam, because everything else is just taking, it's just taking care of people. And it's even in his own fantasy world, he, his happiness revolved around people being in his life, and not necessarily his own personal development.
Right. Definitely let us know what you thought about this episode. We need input from other people on this one. I will say the next episode is like a complete 180. Because obviously they have to wrap up the season, because we're in the last 2. We're the last 2 of season 2.
Oh my God.
Can't believe it.
I
We
know.
made it. And so the next episode is All Hell Breaks Loose, Part 1. I honestly, this could be this could be the end of season 3, because that's how much these two mashes together. And I don't know why.
I think the ending of season 2 is quite strong. I feel like part 2 is better than part 1, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah.
We're going to do 2 episodes on this, so we'll have a part 1 and we'll have a part 2. So look forward to that. But yeah, join us for the end of season 2. It's really exciting. Thanks to our friend and artist who designed our podcast logo, the Pixel Agora on Tumblr. You can also follow them on Ko-fi as well. Definitely have a look at their recent contributions to Souptober. I can never say Souptober, like it's really hard to say. So have a look definitely at their blog, because the recent artwork that they posted is absolutely amazing.
Also check out all of our social medias if you want to reach out to us. Good places to leave comments: Tumblr, YouTube, Instagram. Leave us a review on Apple as well. That'd be nice. Get this out to more people. We need more thoughts and feelings. We need more thoughts and feelings.
Always.
So you can find us at Escaping Purgatory Podcast, or a variation of that on most social platforms.
So this week we got lit in some beautiful orange light as we walked through Purgatory, and then we crashed back to cold hard reality. So hopefully next week we can find our way out. Bye.
Bye.